All right, we'd like to reconvene the meeting. Judge, it's all yours.
All right, so the final item on the open session agenda is the petition for early termination of probation of David John Jordan. Mr. Jordan, if you could come forward. All right, we are on record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences to review the petition for early termination of probation of David John Jordan. This is VBS case number 2002-020-000-2154. Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2023-100-281. My name is Matt Block. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I've been assigned to preside over your hearing today. As a preliminary matter, will all members of the board please identify themselves for the record, starting with the member appearing remotely?
Charlie Renisinger, public member, present.
All right, thank you. And then with the member furthest to my right.
Eleanor Raby, LCSW member.
Abigail Ortega, LCSW member.
Justin Huff, LMFT member.
Chris Jones, LEP member and board chair.
Wendy Strack, public member.
Susan Friedman, public member.
Dr. Nick Boyd, LPCC member.
Yvette Caceres Willis, public member.
Dr. Annette Walker, public member.
Thank you. And may I have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522.
All right, thank you and good afternoon to everyone. Mr. Jordan, I know you've sat through this 3 times now, but just as an overview, Ms. Crawford will present your petition to the board, give an overview of your case. You'll then be given the opportunity to testify under oath. And then Ms. Crawford, the members of the board, and potentially myself might have some questions for you, okay? Ms. Crawford, are you ready to proceed?
I am, Your Honor.
All right.
The petitioner was issued an associate marriage and family therapist registration on July 15th of 2015. A year later, on June 26th of 4 years later or 6 years later, on June 26, 2021, petitioner was issued a subsequent associate marriage and family therapist registration. And a year after that, on May 10th of 2022, he was issued a licensed marriage and family therapist license. The license is current, will expire on May 31st, 2024. An accusation was filed on February 9th of 2018, and a settlement was reached effective November 21st of 2018, placing the petitioner on 5 years probation until November 20th of 2023. On April 21st of 2020, a petition to revoke probation was filed, and on February 15th, 2021, a stipulated settlement became effective, which extended the petitioner's probation for 1 additional year to November 20th of 2024. Due to tolling, the probation is due to terminate on December 30th of 2024. 1 year still remains on petitioner's probation term. The accusation charged petitioner with conviction of a substantially related crime, dishonest act, failure to report the conviction, and failure to provide documentation when asked by the board. The circumstances underlying the accusation were that on November 9th of 2016, respondent was convicted of forgery of a check and theft of personal property. In March of 2016, petitioner had taken a check belonging to another, removed the payee's name and replaced it with his own, and presented the nearly $5,000 check to Chase Bank for cashing. Additionally, 7 months later, on June 2nd of 2017, petitioner was involved in a road rage incident and fled the scene. He was later arrested, and his sentencing terms from the forgery conviction were increased to include penalties from the road rage incident. He entered into a stipulated settlement, which became effective on November 21st of 2018, where he was placed on probation for 5 years by this board with terms and conditions, including psychological evaluation, engaging in psychotherapy, supervised practice, taking education courses in anger management, law and ethics courses, paying costs, and complying with standard terms of probation. However, on April 21st of 2020, the board filed a petition to revoke probation. The petitioner's psychological evaluation recommended abstention from all substances and undergoing random drug and alcohol testing. But the petitioner failed to check in for testing on 13 occasions between March 2019 and April 2020. He also failed to submit to testing on one occasion in February of 2020. The petitioner also did not timely provide the board with information on his psychotherapy, anger management education, or law and ethics courses for board approval. And he also failed to timely inform his employer of his probation and reimburse the board for the probation program in a timely manner. Effective February 15th, 2021, the petitioner entered into another stipulated settlement with the board, which extended his probation for a year to come into compliance with all his probation terms and was ordered a second psychological evaluation. In January of 2020, petitioner was fully compliant with his criminal probation and his record was cleared of the conviction pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4. The petitioner has been fully compliant with probation since the petition to revoke probation, and 1 year remains on his probation term. Your Honor, I can move on to our evidence.
All right.
The first is the notice of hearing of today's hearing date. I would like to mark and introduce that as Exhibit 1.
Any objection, Mr. Jordan?
No.
All right. Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the license and registration history certification for the petitioner. We'd like to mark and introduce that as Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
3 is the probation analyst memo to the board summarizing petitioner's probation history. We'd like to mark that and introduce it as Exhibit 3.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is a petition for early termination of probation along with attachments that the petitioner has provided. I'd like to mark and introduce that as Exhibit 4, subject to administrative hearsay.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Exhibit 5 contains the disciplinary documents in this case, and that consists of the stipulated settlement and the petition to revoke probation in case number 2002-020-02154, as well as the accusation and stipulated settlement in case number 2002-017-000-138. I'd like to mark and introduce those at this time.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Exhibit 6 contains the psychotherapy information sheet and release of information pertaining to the petitioner's petition today. Your Honor has already ordered a protective order to file this exhibit under seal. We'd like to go ahead and do that at this time.
Mr. Jordan, I did sign the protective order this morning, so in the event this is admitted, it would be under seal. So any objection?
No.
Exhibit 6 is admitted and will be sealed subject to the protection order.
Your Honor, I do not have any other evidence or information to present at this time.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Mr. Jordan, are you prepared to testify?
Yes.
Would you please raise your right hand, sir? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Would you please state and spell your full name for our record?
Yes, David John Jordan, DavidJohnJordan.
All right, thank you, sir. And Mr. Jordan, just like the other petitioners earlier today, I will allow you to testify freely in the narrative. This is your opportunity to tell the board a little bit about yourself and what you think the board needs to know to decide your case fairly. When you're done, the board may have questions, I may have questions, Ms. Crawford may have questions, okay?
Okay.
All right, so I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. So I stand before you today, both humbled and resolute, to address the disciplinary action against my therapy license and help demonstrate my compliance and progress in consideration of my request to have my probation terminated early. The nature of the acts leading to the discipline of my therapy license is not one I attempt to excuse, but rather provide an understanding of the circumstances that led to my transgressions and the steps that I have taken to ensure they will not happen again. In 2016 and 2017, I found myself engulfed in a perfect storm of personal turmoil, financial instability, family crises, and health challenges. I made regrettable decisions born out of desperation. I cashed a fraudulent check, initiating a criminal investigation and eventual conviction. I had a significant setback in June of 2017. I was arrested after my involvement in a road rage incident, which alerted the police to an active warrant. The warrant was present because I had not completed my weekend work program days. I completed my sentence and met all my court probation requirements, including full payment of fines, fees, and restitution. My criminal record was eventually expunged on January 2nd, 2020. Regrettably, I failed to report my criminal conviction promptly to the board, triggering disciplinary action. With the assistance of my attorney, I entered a stipulated settlement only to falter in meeting probation conditions, resulting in a petition to revoke probation and extension of the probationary period. I have attempted to face the consequences of my actions head on, each stumble providing a profound lesson in accountability. In response to the board's requirements, I embarked on a journey of rehabilitation. Despite initial setbacks, I completed 2 semester units in anger management and law and ethics. The anger management course has significantly contributed to my self-awareness, pattern recognition, self-regulation, improvement, and emphasized the importance of self-care, stress reduction, and effective communication skills necessary for mental health professionals. The law and ethics course provided me with a renewed understanding of my legal and ethical obligations, enabling me to navigate complex dilemmas, make informed decisions, and prevent future breaches. Importantly, it facilitated my comprehension of the consequences of my actions and reinforced the significance of personal accountability, including promptly reporting any violations to the board. A psychological evaluation underscored the necessity of weekly psychotherapy. I engage in sessions with my approved therapist, who has consistently reported my progress to the board. My commitment to psychotherapy has been instrumental in my personal growth. Through therapy, I've embraced accountability, recognized the impact of substance-free living, developed empathy for others, and processed the profound loss of my father to suicide. This journey has translated into tangible improvements in my personal and professional life, as evidenced by obtaining my license, building a career, marriage, and starting a family. I have attended a minimum of 3 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings weekly, fostering my commitment to sobriety. I have an AA sponsor with which I have completed the 12 steps of AA. Complete compliance with random drug and alcohol testing helps reflect my unwavering dedication to sobriety. Recovery has provided me with everything I value in life. My own participation in this program is something I share with my clients in substance treatment, and I believe they view my success in recovery as a testament to AA. I am happy to report that in September of this year, I celebrated 6 years clean and sober. It is crucial to highlight the adjustments I have made in response to the initial failures to comply with probation requirements, which led to the case being sent back to the Attorney General and an extension of the probation period by 1 year. I have honed my communication, organization, and time management skills. I have ensured timely payment of fees, quarterly report submissions, and adherence to my therapy, testing, and support group schedules. This meticulous approach, combined with the extensive efforts in self-improvement, has culminated in complete compliance since the decision and order in February of 2021 that reinstated and extended the probation. To guarantee the safety of my practice, I have diligently adhered to the probation requirements, upholding legal, ethical, and professional standards. Regular supervision under my board-approved supervisor and the endorsement of my employer attest to my competence and trustworthiness. Letters from my peers in my probation packet petition packet rather, further validate my commitment to growth and safety. I look forward to continuing my professional work while utilizing the support of my supervisor and peers once my probation has ended. I implore the board to consider the transformative journey I've undertaken. I feel the actions I have taken demonstrate my dedication to rehabilitation, compliance, and ethical practice. I seek the board's understanding and consideration of my petition as I strive to continue my professional journey with integrity, competence, and unwavering commitment to the highest ethical standards. As I mentioned earlier, I lost my father to suicide in 2017 while only being 1 month sober. The accountability provided by the board during this probation period has helped me grow in a way I know my father would be proud of. And I plan to take what I've learned with me to the next stage of my career and for the rest of my life. I have experienced so many blessings due to the changes I have made, including marrying my wife in October of 2021. On December 1st, 2022, our son John was born. He will soon be 1 year old, and I know I will never do anything to jeopardize his future and the health of our family by repeating past mistakes. Thank you to everyone that committed time to listening today and effort towards the consideration of my petition.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jordan. Before I turn it over to Ms. Crawford for questioning, Mr. Jordan, when I got back after our lunch break, I noticed that there was a employee review.
Yeah.
Summit Estate Employee Review. Can you tell me a little bit about what this is?
Sure. I had my supposed to be annual performance review at my job. It took place after I had collected all the materials for my petition. So I noticed in the instructions that said if there was any other documents that you'd like to include that may support your petition, you could bring them to the hearing. So I just made copies, and I figured I just submit it as it was a good review. So I submit it as evidence.
And this is your most recent performance review?
Most recent, yeah.
So it looks like the manager's name is Tyler Fitzgerald. Is that your direct supervisor?
That's my clinical supervisor, yeah.
And leadership team member, who is that?
Anya, I'm not sure what her title is. She's
Says leadership team member.
yeah, she's one of the leadership team. Yeah.
All right. So you're offering this into evidence?
Yes.
Ms. Crawford, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. This will be marked as Exhibit A and received for consideration.
Thank you.
With that, Ms. Crawford, questioning?
Yes. Mr. Jordan, can you describe some of the stressors that you spoke about in your life in 2016 and 2017 that led to the check cashing charge and road rage incident?
Yeah, probably most relevantly was my engagement in active addiction in that time. So I've struggled with addiction, honestly, probably starting from when I first started drinking at 18. And it progressed to a point where my life was unmanageable. I had sought treatment for the first time in 2011. And then from that point, I was in grad school at that point. From that point on, I was in and out of recovery until my sobriety date, September of 2017. So the decisions that and actually, the road rage incident, I'll be honest, that was not substance related. I was actually in recovery at that point. So I was in early recovery. I can attribute that to not having probably being in a vulnerable place in my life at that time. Processing what was going on with my family, with my father, not utilizing, I don't know about not utilizing. I probably knew what I should be doing, but I was overwhelmed to the point where I lost control of my feelings. I lost control of my behavior. Yeah. So the charge in 2016 was something that I would never have done in my right mind. That was when I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, spending time with people that I shouldn't have been, right? And got convinced by somebody that it was a good idea to, it was my decision and I made it for my reasons, but I was influenced to do something that was a massive mistake. And as I said, I would never would have done it if I had been sober and in recovery at that point.
What substances what was your preferred substance?
At that point, my drug of choice was methamphetamine.
And your sobriety date, is that your sobriety date from methamphetamine, September 2017?
That's from everything.
Okay.
Alcohol, any mind or mood altering drugs of any kind.
And why didn't you report that criminal incident to the board?
I suppose the best way I can justify that, I mean, I can't justify it, but the best way I can explain it was that my life was out of control at that point. And I suppose I was resigned to the destiny of my addiction and I didn't care what happened. The concept of even being, working in this field was impossible at that point. So I just, whatever was going to happen, whatever consequences I faced, at that point, I was resigned to face them. I'm extremely grateful that I, was able to pull my life together enough to take the opportunities that were provided by the board of like, here's a second chance. But there was a point in my life where I didn't have it in me to pursue rehabilitation of my career, of my life. So things fell through the cracks, and that was one of those things.
So that was what I was going to ask you, was that in 2018, you were placed on probation, and by 2020, you were non-compliant with probation in many aspects. What was happening between when you were placed on probation and when you decided to just become non-compliant?
I think I was attempting to be compliant, but I didn't have, things were falling through the cracks. And I was thinking about this, and there's some things I said in my statement about changes I made to make sure that I pursued complete compliance after the probation was extended. But I think what was going on was I hadn't fully processed the death of my father. So my father died from suicide in October 2017, and I I I didn't take the necessary steps to process losing him. Um, I felt I had to pull my life together. I had be strong for my younger brother, my mother. I had just started a new job. So he passed away October. I started a new job December 2017. And I was still in early recovery. I only had a few months sober at that point. So I had a lot going on. Um, and the feeling I can describe back then was I was just trying to stay afloat, I suppose. Um, there was uh, obtaining a therapist, which was one of the um, requirements after I had my um, psychological assessment, was beneficial. I began to start processing the loss in a valuable way. And there was a period during COVID when I was working from home where all of that emotion just kind of flooded out. And I realized that I was holding on to a lot. Um, I just thinking about what I was carrying. And so, I can't excuse my non-compliance, but I just hope I provided a little bit of information about what was going on where, again, things were falling through the cracks for me at that point.
Where were you working during that time period when the petition to revoke probation was filed?
I was working at my current employer, Summit Estate Recovery Center.
How long had you been there?
Since December 2017.
What was your position there?
Therapist.
So at the time when you're working at Summit as a therapist, and you said you were also struggling to kind of keep your head above water, what resources, if any, were you using to attempt to be compliant with probation and ensure you were conducting yourself professionally at work? What tools were you using, if any?
Well, I've always had the AA program, my recovery program, which includes AA. So I was compliant with meetings. I was going to 3 meetings a week, at least. I had my AA sponsor, who I was working through the 12 steps with. I've been transparent about things with some of my colleagues, so my coworkers, who we've kind of been going through this process together, not the probation process, but of going from being associates to getting licensed. So I've had tremendous support with my colleagues at work. I have a sobriety support network of people from the AA program in my telephone, who I remain in contact with. I have my wife, and we weren't married at that point, but we were living together. She's also in recovery. She's been a tremendous support. And my family, I'm incredibly close to my family. I have my brother and sister-in-law who live in San Francisco, who I see regularly. And my mother, who lives about an hour from me, she's present today with me. Those have been my main sources of support.
With that support structure in place, why were you still non-compliant with probation?
I think I'd just like to reiterate that there was a combination of being early in recovery, processing the loss of my father, I think also I realized I've struggled with kind of organization and time management skills. Like, for example, it annoys my people around me, but I have multiple alarms set on my phone now to remind me to check in for testing every day. And I hadn't put that into place before my noncompliance, before the for the extension of the probation, right? So if I'm being honest, it was a real wake-up call that the way I had been doing things wasn't sufficient for me to work in this field. So I took a look at some things, and those were a couple of the other things that I feel were preventing me from being compliant with the probation.
And your supervised practice information sheet that was filled out by, I believe, your current employer, Tyler Fitzgerald.
Mhm.
He indicates on that sheet that your supervised practice began June 1st of 2022. And can you tell me why it began then? Is that when you started employment at this agency?
It started because that's when I got my license. So I had been an associate MFT, and so he had been my clinical supervisor when I was an associate. When I got my license, I was required to have supervised practice by the board, and I sent, I guess, an appeal to have him stay, or a request to have him remain as my supervisor, as as my supervised practice supervisor, which was approved.
Okay, so he was your supervisor. Well, you did have supervised practice prior to June of 2022.
I had supervision, yeah. So
Okay.
I was doing the same things I was doing now.
It was just under a different registration or licensure.
Yeah, yeah.
And can you speak a little bit to your efforts at rehabilitation from substances?
Well, I was introduced to recovery years ago, and I guess initially in 2011, and I had some relapses. I always knew where the answer was, and that was within the Alcoholics Anonymous program or the 12-step programs. I suppose maybe a return to denial, or an idea that I could, um, you know, whatever, drink in moderation or use and have the life that I wanted. But it's become very clear to me. It became very clear to me, black and white, towards the end, towards in 2016, towards my sobriety date, that I can't have the life that I want. I certainly can't work in this field unless I'm completely sober. And really, the answer has been my work in the AA program, working with my sponsor, completing the steps, staying in contact with other alcoholics, other addicts, people in recovery. Certainly working in substance abuse treatment has, it's been something. It's been, it's been a reminder of what can happen if I don't stay the course, but it's that alone is not sufficient. So, that's, it's been a lifetime journey, and the last 6 years and through working in AA has provided me with everything I've ever wanted.
How often do you attend AA?
At least 3 meetings a week.
And do you have a sponsor?
I do have a sponsor.
How long have you had a sponsor?
Let's see. So since my sober date, I had a sponsor for a year, and then I moved, and he referred me to a guy who had also moved to the same location. So it's been 5 years I've been with my current sponsor.
You've worked all of the 12 steps?
Yes.
Where are you in your 12-step program as part of your daily life?
Well, I certainly try to live by the principles of the steps. I will say that one part of my recovery that I want to pursue moving forward is working as a sponsor for other alcoholics. I've yet to have a sponsee. Perhaps, the type of work that I do in substance rehabilitation, I don't know, as scratch that itch to some extent, but I think it's going to be an essential part of my recovery moving forward to work with other sponsees.
What has prevented you from doing that so far?
Like I said, probably it's an excuse that maybe I feel as though my glass is like my tank is full, just in terms of service, but that's only an excuse. I think I also do need to engage more with my local group, the home group in my hometown. After COVID, the entire community went online, and I, got kind of into the routine of attending online groups. I've just recently started going back to in-person meetings more often, and so that will, I think, help facilitate me finding sponsees to work with.
What is your plan with AA should probation be terminated early?
AA is a lifetime thing for me. I'm going to be going to AA and doing the program for the rest of my life. That's it. No plans to change, if anything, hopefully get more involved.
And you said you'd be doing, you see AA as a lifetime thing and you'd be doing the program. What do you mean by the program? That entail for you?
The program entails, attending meetings, staying in consistent contact with my sponsor. Um, um, I think given where I am in my recovery, having 6 years sober, I think prioritizing the newcomer, I think a lot about, because I see a lot of people who come in for treatment who are resistant to the community programs. And it's one thing I think about more than anything, actually, is how that initial resistance to those programs, it can be a life or death thing. Like you could go to a meeting and then have a bad experience or whatever and not be down with the God language or something like that, and then not come back, relapse and die. So I think that's something I want to be engaged with more. And I talk about it a lot at work with people, but I think I want to be engaged with it more, like hands-on with the community itself.
How did psychotherapy benefit you?
Tremendously. The whirlwind that was my life in addiction. I had so basically what I was doing was any challenge, any difficult emotion, I was just self-medicating with substances. So there was a big old backlog of stuff that I hadn't processed through. Most notably, I think. So there's my addiction, right? Like all of the stuff that comes with that: resentment, regret, guilt, shame, tremendous shame. Damage done to myself, to my family, people that care about me. So I got an opportunity to process that through that. And then of course, my father's suicide. You know, help me understand that there's no, I perhaps was being judgmental of myself for how I was processing it, stuffing it down and not crying. And my therapist helped me, really understand that there's no right way to go through grief and to process something like that. So that was tremendously beneficial to get the opportunity to do that and have someone I could touch base with weekly about that. And also, I'm an MFT. My therapist was also an MFT, so she's familiar with some of the challenges that we face as mental health professionals. So it allowed me to, process some of the stress and, some of the things that happen in the field. Yeah.
Why are you seeking to terminate your probation early?
I'm highly confident that I'm going to continue living and working in the way that I have been moving forward, whether the probation is active or not. I'm tremendously grateful, actually, to having to going through this process, because I think, there's external motivation, and this was one of them. Like, I want to make sure that I can actually work as a therapist, that I'm allowed to work as a therapist. So I wanted to be compliant, ultimately seeking to be compliant and get through this and demonstrate that I'm appropriate to be working in this field. But I have tremendous internal motivation in my life right now. After the birth of my son, have a happy little family, and I'd like to kind of move on from this and, um, I don't want to say that I suppose if I'm being honest, there's parts of it that have been very beneficial, and there are parts of probation that feel like they pull you down a little bit. Um, but it's a necessary thing. But I would like to I'm excited to see the next chapter of my life, and you know, there's no doubt that that I'm going to continue to work in a way that's, you know, uh, to work in a way that's acceptable and safe and um, beneficial to others.
Would early termination of your probation affect your practice in any way?
So when I made the request to, because initially I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep my current supervisor, so I had to make a kind of special request to do it. And one of the things that I had committed to was because he's my supervisor at that facility at my job, that I wouldn't see any private practice clients. It just kind of, I guess it made more sense, right? He wouldn't have to oversee me seeing clients outside of the facility. But it's certainly something that I'm interested in doing. Our program goes from residential care, to IOP to outpatient. Outpatient is just like a therapy session in a couple groups. But then there are people that would like that do request, that would like to continue therapy beyond that outpatient level. So thus far, I have great referrals that I can refer folks to. But it would be, I'm interested in because it takes time to build, to get into really good. Sometimes it takes time to get into good work with clients, right? And so something I would be interested in doing is continuing working with them out, after they discharge from our program, from our clinical program. So that's something that I would I would look forward to potentially doing.
So you would do that as part of the program you're currently working in, or as a private practice?
It would be private practice, yeah. In each of those situations, though, I would still kind of process it with the clinical team, like my supervisor. So at our facility, actually, whether you're licensed or not, you still work under the kind of the supervision of the clinical director there. So if someone is, for me, if somebody is wanting to continue, right, with therapy after our program, right, it would be something that I would discuss with my peers, with my supervisor. Do you think this is an appropriate client to keep on in a private practice setting, right?
But you don't envision that you would be still working for that agency if you do move into private practice? You would just be an extension of services?
No, I think I would still be working at the agency.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. We will turn it over then to the board for questioning, starting with Mr. Ranasinghe.
Hello, Mr. Jordan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan, I noticed in your petition that you listed your sobriety date as September 1st, 2017, but following that period of sobriety from 2017 onward, there was some hiccups in your recovery, which resulted in a revocation of probation. Could you touch on why that was happening?
Yeah, so hiccups in my recovery, no, but hiccups in, in my life, yes. I think I've mentioned, right? There was a number of things happening at that point. The loss of my father in October 2017, starting a new job, being in early recovery, coming straight out of, a tumultuous time. And then some things that that I just was I realized I was falling short on, including time management, organization, some basic skills that I wasn't putting into place. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Uribe?
That's me. Okay, so besides private practice, how would your life be different if you were not on probation?
In terms of the way I would live my life, it would not be different. I would be doing the same things that I'm doing now, with the exception of the biological fluid testing, for example. But in terms of engagement in my recovery program, interacting with my supervisor and peers in order to provide the best possible care for clients. Not and engagement in therapy. I plan to continue with those things.
Mhm. Is there anything else, given what you've gone through and decisions that were made, if you had, say, a client that had come to you with this scenario, is there anything different you would have done or recommended for them?
Yeah, I wouldn't have waited to the freak out moment of getting the like, hey, your license is going to get revoked, to do the thing, to do the things that you're supposed to do, right? Like somebody mentioned previously, having to learn the hard way, right? And I think I spent too much time, I don't know, in resentment or self-pity, just being like, oh, it's so hard to do all this stuff, right? I think I just would have put my head down and done it, done the footwork first and then work it out in my head or psychologically or emotionally after that.
Thank you.
Ms. Ortega?
Yes. Abigail Ortega. Would love, I heard that you do have a sponsor. What is your relationship like with your sponsor?
Brotherly, fatherly. I would talk to him about anything, right? So that period during COVID where the stuff I had stuffed down about my dad, been working from home, like the whole world's kind of going crazy. We're all working from home during COVID, right? I felt kind of this stuff ramping up. He was the person I picked up the phone and called, and I experienced kind of immediate relief. And it wasn't anything deep. It was just like, hey man, I just want to check in with you and see how you're doing. And he just started talking to me about what he was doing is on a hike with his wife and his kid. And you know what I mean? It just, he can center me in any situation.
Okay, and what so you mentioned that there are parts of probation, right, that have pulled you down.
Mhm.
What parts?
So, eh, so biological fluid testing is very expensive. Um, and so of recent, you know, I've thought about it a bit more. Student loans are coming back. Um, I have to pay those. I have a baby, right? And so I think like the behavioral stuff, the stuff that I've put into place of like, it's helped me make the right decisions. But, you know, um, financially, I guess is one. And then, you know, some of the restrictions, like not working with private clients. Like I've actually went back and uh checked my request to keep my supervisor, because I'm like, did I agree to that, or am I just being judgmental? Am I holding myself back because I'm on this probation? Right. I wanted to clarify that. So that's another example of feeling kind of pulled down by it.
Okay. And what could be some challenges that you faced, or what have been some challenges you've faced recently in maintaining your sobriety? Can you give like any examples of occasions when you have used 12 steps or anger management tools?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so in terms of like external challenges, like being in a bar or being anywhere around a party where there's alcohol or anything like that, like I don't do any of that. Like I'm not really ever in the presence of alcohol, maybe at a restaurant or something. Right. So I'm not too worried about that. It's more internal challenges. And ultimately, right, the thought that comes to mind occasionally is that uh I need something outside of myself to feel better about whatever's going on. So, um, you know, when my wife was pregnant, for example, right, and her blood pressure is high, you know, and they're like, "Oh, we might have to rush her in," right? That's a moment in which um, she might have to go into the hospital, right? That's a moment in which maybe that thought comes up, like I want to use something outside of myself. But the things that I use now are they're not drugs or alcohol. You know, they're not unhealthy behaviors. They're healthy behaviors. So I actually, you know, I'll take a walk, for example. Like I did it right before this hearing started because I felt the energy popping up. So I just like, I'm just going to go take a walk. I engage in prayer and daily, and that's super beneficial. Centers me. Um, yeah, so it's really just the stressors of life that bring up negative emotions that I don't want to be in. Those would be the triggers. But I feel I have sufficient tools for dealing with those now.
Can you share a little, a short, and then can you share more tools that you've gained from like the courses you've taken or the therapy, right, that you've had?
Let's see.
Um,
So like tools like anger management tools.
mhm. Or, you know, whatever comes to you right now.
Um, so so something that I do practice and also preach is mindfulness meditation practice. Right. I try to do 10 minutes of that a day. I'm not perfect with it, but I try to engage in that. That's very helpful. Um, I think the ultimate tool is connecting with another person. So I I have a phone list of people in my phone. I put AA in front of their name because they're all at the very top of my phone list. so I can whip up my phone list and just make a call. And kind of like the example I gave about calling my sponsor, as soon as, especially if it's somebody else who's in recovery, if I'm ever experiencing an emotion that is unmanaged, I feel, I'm having trouble managing, connecting with another person in recovery relieves me from that, right? They'll tell me exactly what I already know, but I'm having trouble accessing that wise thought because I'm in emotion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Huff?
Justin Huft, thank you for being here, Mr. Jordan, and thank you for being here with an infant at home. And I first want to say it's quite admirable that you have maintained the same job throughout nearly the entirety of your sobriety. I think that that's notable. I have a few questions because I think maybe I misunderstood something or there's some clarity. Your sobriety date is September 2017, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
When did the road rage incident happen?
It was after that.
So in your packet, you noted, and I think Deputy Attorney General Crawford also noted that it was in June 2017 before your sobriety date. And you had noted that road rage had happened in part because it was early in your sobriety and it was after your dad's death. So I'm struggling to.
You just reminded me of why I said I was in recovery. So before my sobriety date, September, right? I had a 10-day relapse. That was my last use, right? Before that, I had been sober for 6 months. I was in the Kaiser CDRP program, which I did twice in a row, basically. So I had been sober that 6 months. And then I had a 10-day relapse, and then I started the program again. I started back in day treatment,
Mm-hmm.
and I did another 6+ months of treatment.
So in early 2017, there was a period of sobriety.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. You also noted you've been asked this in different ways, essentially to speak to your non-compliance, and the answer has been each time you were quote early in recovery. And I want to gently push back. This is 3 years after your September sobriety date.
Mm-hmm.
At what point are you no longer early in recovery?
That's a good question. People consider it to be different things. Some people say it's the first year. I kind of think it's the first 5 years, honestly. I think, to develop the skills to live a lot, to live life, especially, with the particular stressors, I don't know, of working in this field, I suppose, and, my circumstances, right? To manage all that, if I'm being honest, right, I didn't have sufficient skills at that point, to be compliant, so, it's taken me a while to kind of straighten things out.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for that clarification.
Mhm.
There's some important insights. I think your progress in addressing substance use is very clear in your packet, in what you've said. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about what you've done to address the internal issues that contributed to road rage, to non-compliance, because I'm hearing that maybe you keep attributing it to substance abuse.
Mm.
Wonder if maybe you can speak to other issues that you've addressed.
Sure. Well, I don't know if the road rage incident would have happened if it was just like only about substance use. I think you're right. I think there are, I think my tendency has been to not only, use substances to manage feelings, but also to stuff them and not address them. Right. So, in terms of what I've done to kind of change that, is I'm trying to pursue radical honesty about what's going on with me at this point. And I do feel like I have outlets in my life now more than ever where I can talk to them about what's going on and get the support that I need. It really every area of my life at home, with my extended family and also at work. Um, so I think that's been, while I've been on probation, I think I've made progress towards, towards that point of uh, first kind of checking in with somebody about like what's going on, what I'm instinctually feeling like I want to do, old behaviors, and then what should I do, right? And I do feel like I have tools to address those things now. Yeah.
Great, thank you. You also noted that you are an active member in Santa Clara Valley and Santa Cruz Camped. Can you tell us a little bit about what does it look like to be an active member?
So, I guess active just meaning like I have an active membership, to be honest. So, am I super active in it? Like, no, not really, but it is something that I think I do want to pursue. Um, when I was looking for a supervisor, I sent out a ton of, somebody suggested, hey, like you're a member of these organizations. Why don't you ask for help? Ask from them before I had my supervision situation figured out. I did actually meet with a few people who I met through that that organization. And so I get emails about like, hey, you should do this newly licensed group. And I just, I'll be honest with you, I haven't utilized those resources, but it's certainly something that I probably should.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you for being here. I have no questions. They've all been asked already. Thank you.
Ms. Struck?
I just have one question. I kind of wanted to go back to the original incident with the check and finding yourself in that situation where you had those financial pressures and kind of feeling like you had no other options. So what are you building kind of around yourself now so that if you find yourself in a similar situation again, you don't resort to the same actions?
Yeah, what I did was, so far I was so out of, I mean, I guess I can't say it was out of category. I did it, but I have support, financial support. Like I have people in my life that if I was ever in that position again, I would go to, and I don't know, not necessarily like ask for money, but ask for at least insight of what I should do, right? So I'm very close with my brother and my mother, right? And so part of why I probably didn't go to them initially is because I was ashamed of what I was doing in my life, right? I didn't want to tell them exactly what was going on. So, I didn't ask for help. That's something that I've worked on through therapy is asking for help. I think maybe there's kind of a theme here, but as opposed to stuffing stuff down, right? I'm comfortable with asking for help with whatever is going on with me in my life, financial stressors, anything. Yeah.
Thank you. That was helpful. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Friedman?
Hi, thanks for being here and congratulations on believing that you have the supports that you do need in your life today. I want to go back though very far to when you were in school studying for this.
Mhm.
Were you using meth and alcohol then?
Not meth at that point, but I was drinking. Yeah, I was drinking. I was like a weekend warrior type. So I was sober throughout the week and then drinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, eventually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that was not maintainable. It actually was in a PhD program, which I didn't finish, and that was because of my my addiction. So 2 years into that program, that's when I took a leave, and that's when I first went to treatment in 2011. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to ask you, you said you're excited for the next chapter in your life. And I assume that the next chapter is a lot having to do with your having clients that you talked about doing that kind of therapy. Is that also something in which you might need help, that you would feel comfortable asking for help?
Almost certainly, yeah. Something I talk about with my current clinical director is one of the goals I identified was like, what's it like working with people in private practice, and what particular stressors do that, challenges does that bring? But I also have I have a couple of people I mentioned earlier, a couple women in the community or that are also therapists who working in private practice for a long time that I feel comfortable calling or emailing, who I know who actually are also in recovery. So yeah, I don't know exactly. Well, I want to say I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm very new. It's something I haven't done before. So I definitely want to utilize all the resources that I have around me to make sure that I'm doing it in a way that's manageable, right? And obviously safe and, making sure that you're providing the best care for clients.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Boyd?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Casares Willis?
I don't. Thank you for being here. I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
And Dr. Walker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Jordan, I don't have any questions either. I appreciate your testimony. Thank you.
Ms. Crawford, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Mr. Jordan, you've heard this 3 times already. The board is prepared to go into closed session to deliberate. A written decision will issue within 30 days, and you'll be notified of that at a date in the future, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Good luck to you, sir.
Thanks.
With that, the matter is submitted, the record is closed, and we are off the record.
All right.
All right, thank you. I believe that's the conclusion of our public session. Now it is time to move to closed session. So we will take a couple minutes to get there. Thank you. Oh, I have to adjourn, don't I? I have to words I have to say. Sorry.
You guys have to pass. Are we going right into?
All right, we'll move into the closed session. Thank you for participation in today's meeting.